going to move ahead to our class, and we're going to be talking about the right use of energy. Now, energy is an interesting thing because all the different energies are neither good nor bad. It depends on how they're used. Like, let's just take electricity, for example. Electricity can either be used for the electric chair to put a person to death. A lightning bolt can strike somebody and turn them into ashes, and that can be kind of negative. Or we can heat our homes with it, light our homes, and use it for all kinds of good things, run our computers. Without electricity, we wouldn't be able to be here talking today. So that's a really good example of electricity is neutral. It depends on how we direct it. On the other hand, say the internet can be used for really great things. Other people use it for child porn and different things like that that are negative, or to plan maybe assassinations or whatever. And so all these things are neither good nor bad just by themselves. And this is a mistake a lot of people make, is they label different things good or bad that are really just neutral. And what is good or bad is how they're used. Like, let's take the name Lucifer, for example. Lucifer means light bringer. Now, there was a great bringer of light that apparently fell from heaven. And because this person that fell is associated with light, being a light bringer is associated as being evil. But the light bringer is really mostly a good thing, because that person that fell is called the Prince of what?
Darkness.
He's not called the Prince of Light, even though he's associated with the word light bringer. He's associated with being called the Prince of Darkness. Okay, so
Wasn't he? Didn't he fall from grace because he wanted to bring glory to himself?
right, That's the way the story goes, and he wanted to take away the free agency of man, and because he didn't trust us to progress on our own, he felt we need a lot of supervision so that we don't go too far astray. Whereas the plan that was accepted evidently was the plan of maximum freedom, where we have the ability to choose for ourselves. That's the way the story goes. But anyway, things are neither good nor bad, except thinking makes it so. And the term Lucifer means morning star, and Jesus himself says, "I am the bright and morning star." So Jesus was saying, "I am the true light bringer." Whereas the one that fell is actually called the Prince of Darkness, but we've convoluted that into making light bringer and the word it represents as being Lucifer as being really a bad thing. And so it's only bad because thinking has made it so, because people did not really understand it. So there's a lot of truth in Shakespeare's statement that there's nothing good or bad except thinking makes it so. And so thinking, how we think about things and how we direct energies is an important thing. Now, as far as we were talking about sex in relation to God, that knowing God, the word for in the scriptures for sex is to know. And to know, Adam knew Eve and begat Seth and so on. But we, on the other hand, are supposed to know God. So knowing God is a higher correspondence of knowing each other as far as sex goes. When you know a person in physical sex, you know them as much as can be known on the physical level. And then it proceeds to higher levels if the people are in touch with their souls. And so we seek to move up as high as possible up the ladder of union. So the principle behind good and evil in sex is somewhat of a mystery. And this is why there's so much misunderstanding about sex. People don't know what's right and wrong about it. And even in religion, like I say, they say, well, this is what God wants, and that's not good enough for everybody. So what we need to look at is what is really right and wrong about what makes sex a positive thing and what makes it a negative thing. To understand this, first of all, we must understand the principle behind good and evil itself. What's the difference between good and evil? First of all, is there such a thing? And a lot of New Age people say there's no such thing as good and evil. I mean, there's no evil. They don't like the word evil because it's funny, New Age people are really against all these biblical words like sin, evil, repentance. They don't like those words anymore. And the reason they don't like them is because the meaning has been somewhat altered. If we go back to the original Greek and Hebrew of these words, they have really a very sound, rich meaning. But if we go by the words as they're preached by the preachers today, they sound kind of shallow and a little bit meaningless somewhat. First of all, we might ask the question, is there good and evil? Is there good and evil is like asking, is there a duality? Is there up and down? Is there light and dark? There definitely is. We definitely live in a world of duality. And where this confusion comes in is a lot of teachers teach about the worlds beyond the worlds of form where there is complete unity. In our source, where we came from, before the worlds of form were created, there was a great unity where dualities didn't seem to exist. Yet the seed of duality is always in every essence. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. In the unity, before there was any creation, the seed of duality had to exist or else it couldn't be here now. So the seeds of duality, the seeds of everything, the ideas behind everything exist in the eternal mind. Even though in the beginning we were a great unity, the seeds of duality were still there. There's always duality. There's cause and effect. And cause can always produce effect, and cause and effect is eternal. There's never been a time when there's not been cause and effect. That is the one thing that is eternal. And the interplay of cause and effect has produced everything there is, including you and me. You and me is a result of the interplay of cause and effect, producing a point of light in eternal space that has grown until it is now you, until it is now me. So good and evil does exist in our realm now. And the mistake a lot of New Agers make is they look at the ideal. The ideal is to bypass duality and go to our eternal home. And the trouble with this is we left our eternal home for a purpose, to come down here and gain experience and to learn to master these worlds of form that we created. So it's like saying, a lot of the attitude of the New Agers today is would be comparable to a guy going to work. He goes to work to sell, let's say, selling real estate, and instead of working on selling real estate, he wants to be back home watching TV and just enjoying himself. So what good does it do to focus on being back home watching TV when he's supposed to be out doing his job? He went to work for a purpose. So if you go to work for a purpose, you fulfill that purpose, then you come back. And what a lot of people want to do here is life is kind of tough. That's kind of hard work. And so they want to get out of that work. So they say, I just want to go home. I want to focus on being in the great unity and bliss and leave this whole situation. Well, we came here for a purpose. So let's come down. Let's focus on what our purpose is, fulfill it. And after we fulfill our purpose, then we go home. And but on the other hand, thinking of home, understanding that there is a home to go to, that's the understanding the disciples must have, that there is an end product that we're looking forward to. After a good, hard day's work, you want to go home and relax, sit in your easy chair, and just take it easy. And this is what we will do when we're done with our life experience. So there is definitely good and evil, and up and down, and right and left, and positive and negative. All the dualities are in existence, and so it's important that we not deny that they are here, because we have to learn to use these dualities to do our job, so to speak. So we come here to do a job, and we live in the world of dualities. So living in the world of dualities, it's not really productive to pretend that there are no dualities, because there are dualities here that we have to learn to master. And by ignoring them does not make them go away. And I've talked to a lot of people on the internet that claim that they are in a consciousness that's beyond duality. I say, well, if you're beyond duality, how come your body is still here? Because your body is created by positive and negative forces. So if your body is still here, you are not beyond duality. If you are beyond duality, your body will just disappear and go back to its source. But pretending you're beyond duality doesn't make you there. But understanding that there are eternal places that we originated from, where the dualities are in such balance as if they do not even exist. So, but the seed is always there, or we could not have the creation of the worlds of form, which is important for us to experience. So good and evil, what's the difference then between good and evil? The Tibetan defines it as good is that which helps us to progress to our next step. And evil is that which takes us backward, okay? So I like that. And we can expand on that a little bit and say that good is that which takes us toward unity, and evil is that which takes us toward separation. And in a way, it's like saying the same thing, because as we progress, we're progressing until when we take our next step is always toward unity and not away from unity. Okay.
Along those lines, just to interject there, it's like Solomon was pointing out last week from the Labors of Hercules in Taurus, the three words, God, sex, and sin. God representing all that is, everything, the creation and the creator. Sex is the energy that brings all the aspects or parts of God together towards greater unity. And sin is that which creates any separation or takes you out of the higher cosmic design of unity. So I thought that was good that Solomon brought that up. Just in those three words, you can define moving forward, creating a conscious unity or a division.
Right. So sin would be very close correspondence to what we're talking about as evil, because evil is that which brings separation,
Right.
makes you see yourself as different from your neighbor and less and more deserving than your neighbor and more loving than your neighbor, and your neighbor as being somebody that should be despised. This is ultimate separation. And so this would be evil to look upon people in this way. And we're having a big problem with this in the world, and especially the United States at this time, with the riots and protests. And one side is seeing the other side as being totally evil. They're both seeing each other as being evil. And it's produced a tremendous separation. And hopefully will lead to good, because sometimes the separation produces contrast, and the contrast brings understanding as to where the problem is. So let us hope that this is the next step for us, that we can have some understanding as to what's producing this separation, and then use that understanding to heal. And this
I think one of the issues that it's covering is that it's causing religions to lose their base for stability. People are pulling away from religions at an alarming rate, and they're looking for something that's more solid, something they can touch now almost. There's no such thing as a blue pill and you're going to understand. It takes time to understand it. But people are pulling away from what used to hold the masses stable, and that's religions. But the paradigm's changing, and we have to understand that there's a new thought pattern that's coming about, and the old religion keep what we had of it and move on to this new understanding. But it's scaring a lot of people. They don't understand.
Right. And also I've heard that a lot of religious people are questioning things and asking what they can do better and things like that. So there's positive and negative developing there. So that's good.
Well, a lot of it is moving from the sixth ray energy into the seventh ray energy, from idealism and devotion into pragmatic business and the world of reality as it is, not just as we want it to be.
Okay, so the basic difference between good and evil then is good takes us toward union, greater union, and evil separates us, so we see each other as separate units that we don't feel really empathy for, because that person is totally separate from me. So let's put this in relation to sex. How can sex take us toward union? Now, on a physical level, we can see it very clearly that there's a blending physically and there's a union physically, which the scriptures call this union as being one flesh. Okay, so there is a union there on the physical level. But if it's just on the physical level only, how about the other levels? Okay, so sex, to be totally in the category of good, needs to produce union on more than just the physical level. Yeah, Stacy? Did you have something?
I was going to say, how about if we take good and evil in a different perspective and look at good as being one energy polarity, that we have a decision, we can go good or evil. And let's take it, evil is not actually evil, but not following the same path as that good energy or the correctness of it, the understanding of it. So it's not so much that it's evil, it's just not as good as the what should be allowed as goodness. So, we're kind of reclassifying it as evil just because it's not a positive good form.
Well, what was good in one age may be not good in another age, or maybe evil.
What a teacher told us in a group once from Spirit, the only evil is if you harm another or yourself.
Okay, And looking at it from the unity viewpoint, though, that what is good takes us toward union, what is evil takes us toward separation. And separation produces all these negative things that you're talking about. Union produces eventually all the good things that we're talking about. So this is what we want us to do, is focus on the core principle. And so on the physical level with sex, we have union. And for the very carnal people, this is the only union they experience. But what's the next step up toward the interplay of the sexes for union? Above the physical, the next step up is on the emotional or astral world.
Well, where you're happy with a person.
Right. And so if you feel a warmth, romantic energy with that person, you can have a union on the emotional level. And that can also be experienced during physical sex and enhance the whole experience, make it actually a lot more enjoyable than just the physical side. Just on the physical side alone, you know, as far as if a person tries to just please himself, he can only go so far. He needs another person to enhance that level of pleasure, even on the physical world. And the same thing on the emotional. On the emotional, you can please yourself so much on the emotional level, but to go to the next level, you need others involved in your emotional world and get feedback from them and get sharing from them. And then you can have a stronger emotional sharing than you can just as an individual living alone and being alone. Like the scripture says, it is not good that the man should be alone. And so the reason it's not good is because of the principle of union, where we need union to make our next step. Now, the next step up is on the
mind,
the heart energies. Just stepping ahead just a little bit there. So on the heart energies, the feeling energy is divided into two categories. One towards selfishness, towards self, and the other toward others, where you're thinking of others and letting go of the separation and feeling a unity. And when this unity is understood, then the heart energies can be accessed. And when the heart energies are accessed, then you can have union on a higher level still. And then there's the final union of mind to mind, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But now, the big one of the big problems of sex is that a lot of people ask is, well, is casual sex okay? Because let's say I have sex with half a dozen people and nobody feels like they're injured or hurt. Everything's cool, right? And so then the religious person comes along and he says, no, that's against God's will, and so on. But what is interesting is all the holy prophets and men and women in the past have taught certain rules about sex that it's should be limited to certain circumstances. And they did this for a reason, because sex, just to fulfill the carnal desires, puts the focus on the lower self. And this focus on the lower self blocks the higher energies. Now, the carnal sex centers the attention on the sacral center, with sometimes a little on the solar plexus. And this limits the ability to achieve union. Now, sex, like I say, is neither good or bad. Like I said, the energies are not good or bad. but it's how they're used. And so if it's used only to satisfy the lower self, this puts attention on the lower self and blocks the energies of union. Now, why are the energies of union blocked through just casual sex? Part of the reason is sex brings you very close together, and people, once they have sex, they want something more. They want to fulfillment on the emotional levels and higher levels, and at least one of them in the relationship will. So if they're having just a casual
I
relationship,
thought they wanted a cigarette.
what's say? So if they're having just
I thought they wanted a cigarette.
Oh, yeah, right. So they're just having a casual relationship. They're having a certain amount of sharing. Now, to have a greater sharing, there's something that has to transpire, and that is trust. You have to trust the person not to injure you. And this is a big problem in relationships. People share so much and then no more because they're afraid of getting hurt. So people in casual relationships will share on the lower levels, but not on the higher, because they feel if I give everything, then that gives this person tremendous power to hurt me. And he or she isn't really totally committed to me, so they can just dump me maybe anytime. Maybe there's a 50-50 chance in your mind that the relationship will end in the near future. And so this prevents you from trusting the other person. And if you don't trust the other person, then you don't give of your emotional self and of your higher energies. Because if you give everything you have to that other person on the highest level that you know, you're giving them power to hurt you if they decide to. Okay. So if you're in a relationship, like two people in a close relationship, if one of them betrays the other and leaves them for no reason, then there will be tremendous hurt. Sometimes it's so bad that they'll even end their lives. It hurts them so much. Or maybe they'll seek revenge. It has a very negative, powerful effect. So what is desired is to produce a situation in the relationship where there can be trust. And what has society done? What have they created that enhances that element of trust?
What, marriage?
Right, marriage. And society has recognized that the committed relationship produces stability. So they've created a marriage, legal marriage situation where you can actually get together. You make a commitment till death do you part, or for time and eternity, however you want to do it. And so this committed relationship, when you feel the other person is totally committed, totally dedicated to the relationship, then what happens? You can trust them. So you can trust them and then share. But even after there is a commitment, a marriage that happens, oftentimes there's still not total trust. They think, well, I'm married to this guy, but he flirts around a lot, and I'm not sure if I can trust him with my whole self. So instead of sharing 100%, maybe there's only 60% sharing, because the person thinks if I share 100% and then he leaves me, I could be destroyed. That's the way people feel. And so what happens? What needs to happen is enough trust needs to be built up so the person can say, I'm going to share everything. And when the two people have that attitude that they can share everything, then they can have an enhancement, higher levels of sex, not just physical, and you don't even have to have the physical connection. to share these higher energies, but these higher energies can be shared and the two can experience a union much higher than average. Now, the problem with sharing is people think if I share 100%, I can become vulnerable and this person has power to destroy me. But that's a deception. No one has power to destroy you because you are already invulnerable. No one can destroy you. And this is the approach that I've taken in my relationships, because in any relationship you have, you do not know with 100% surety that that person will always stay on the straight and narrow, that that person will be able to avoid every temptation that comes by to destroy the relationship. You do not know that. So when you give 100%, you're taking somewhat of a chance, even though the person just seems totally 100% committed. You're still taking a chance. And this chance in your mind often causes people to hold back. Well, I can't share 100% because I'm not 100% sure that this person will not hurt me sometime in the future. So I'm going to hold back a little bit. But I've come to the conclusion that that's a deception. It's a deception because you're invulnerable. That other person does not have power to destroy you. He has power to maybe hurt your personality, but he has no power to hurt your soul. And so the attitude to have is, once you find somebody that you're, say, over 90% sure that it's worth taking a chance, that you feel pretty comfortable in trusting them, then share 100%. And share 100% with the attitude of, even if my partner, turns on me and does your worst, I will survive. And I will bounce back and I will find someone else and have a union with them. So have that attitude. Have that attitude. See yourself as invulnerable. If you see yourself as vulnerable and fragile, you will be vulnerable and fragile. And why is this? It's because
Energy follows thought.
right, energy follows thought, and your real self is omnipotent, has tremendous power to fulfill your thoughts. So if you see yourself as invulnerable, even though in the true reality you are invulnerable, you will have the illusion of being vulnerable, and you will live in a world where it seems like you are very fragile, when in reality you're not. It's like the rich prince gets amnesia and he thinks he's just a poor man and romances some girl, and this girl feels that she just married a poor man. And then he gets his memory back, finds out he's a prince, and the woman can now be, and that type of thing. It's when we feel that we are fragile and vulnerable, we are caught in an illusion, and we need to wake up. When we wake up, and we need to wake up to have this fulfillment, and then say to your partner, all I have is yours, I'm giving 100%. And if your partner is willing to do the same thing to you, then you can move your union to a higher correspondence of sex, to unions on higher levels. And what it will do immediately is produce a strong emotional union, especially if your partner is willing to share also. So if you throw out 100% and your partner is, say, maybe 70%, your partner will feel that sharing and kind of gravitate to being more trustful himself. So his 70% may go to 80, and eventually the ideal of 100. So if the two can get close to 100%, then they can have these higher sharings. But this is the big roadblock, is people have this fear of being hurt. And oftentimes this shows up in the handwriting also. I'm a handwriting analyst, and so I've analyzed a lot of married couples. And when I see in their handwriting, I see this fear of being hurt, I explain it to them, and it kind of opens their eyes somewhat when they realize that, yeah, you know, I do kind of hold back on my emotional sharing somewhat. And hopefully that helps them to take their next step. Because what often causes this is things that happen when we're young. Maybe when you're young, your parents hurt you emotionally, and it made you feel very vulnerable and afraid to share yourself with others. And so then oftentimes maybe the first love experience you had where you fell in love when you were a teenager, maybe you were really head over heels of this other person and then they broke your heart. And so you think, boy, I don't want that to happen again. So I'm not going to trust another person. You may not think this consciously, but subconsciously you are very hesitant to throw out your energies in such a way that the other person can trample on your feelings and hurt you. So this needs to be let go by the realization that you're invulnerable. If you give everything you have and the other person just misuses it, jumps up and down on your feelings and tries to destroy you, you will come through it and survive if you believe in your own invulnerability. Believe in the invulnerability of your soul, and you can then go ahead and take your chances. And this is what we have to do. We have to take some chances in order to have the higher experiences. You cannot have the higher experiences without some risk. So many people there are who sense there's higher fulfillment possible, but they don't know how to achieve it. How in the world do we take that next step? And this is an important thing toward this next step, is to have that trust. But a question, some people say, well, okay, well, I married this character, but you know, I just can't trust him. What am I going to do? Okay, that is an awkward situation. Share as much as you can, but if you can't trust the person, then you're really better off to get rid of him and then find somebody that you can trust. I mean, if you truly cannot trust that person, either that or maybe because of the kids you have to stay together or different things like this, there's many things entering into the equation. It's difficult to make the best of the situation, but in relationships that do not have much trust, this is what the person has to do, is just make the best of it, and maybe divorce is the ultimate solution there. And after that, then make sure that you find somebody you can trust. Don't form a permanent relationship with anyone that you cannot trust. If you can't trust them, have casual relationship with them, but not committed. If you commit yourself to somebody that doesn't commit back 100%, then the relationship will not be very fulfilling. Anyone had that problem before in a relationship? You committed yourself, but the other person wasn't as committed as yourself. Anyone want to comment on that in their own life experience?
Yeah, a lot.
You've had that happen, Joshua?
Yeah, well, I have this sort of will to do the right thing no matter what, and a lot of other people don't.
Yeah. Before there can be a union of the heart centers, The aspirant must learn to master the emotional energy streaming from the solar plexus. This emotional energy must be subject to the control of the mind. Before the mind energies can be shared, the mind must be dominated by the intuition. So we have these energies from the solar plexus, and the solar plexus governs romantic love. So if we feel romantic love toward the other person in the standard sense as defined by society, that's from the solar plexus. Now, you can share the higher heart energies with your mate, but that will produce a spiritual feeling that many people have never felt before. But people that are on the spiritual path are capable of sharing these higher love energies. And but to share them, the lower energies must be controlled by the mind. So the mind must direct how the desires are used. There's nothing wrong with desire. Desire is, again, an energy which is neither good nor bad. But if it's directed by the mind, the desires can be channeled in a positive direction. If they're connected just to the emotional level, where they're directed by what we feel is the right thing to do, then we will make a lot of mistakes in using our desire nature. And so that needs to be controlled by the mind and reason, and the mind needs to be controlled by the soul. If the emotions are controlled by the mind and the mind by the soul, then the person will be headed in the right path. If one only
Said something in regards to the desires of the higher nature should be adhered to, and desires of the lower nature you should be disassociated with. So there's two types of desires: the higher desires and the lower desires.
Right, the higher desires are connected with the heart. Right, the higher desires are connected with the heart.
Right.
The higher desires are like toward union, and the lower desires toward self is with the solar plexus. So that's right on line there, Stacy. Now, if one only has shared the solar plexus and sacral energies and desires to enjoy the heart energies, he must do two things. First, he must find a mate who is at the correct point of evolution, as previously discussed. Second, he must subject all the desire energy of the solar plexus to the control of the mind. Only in this way can the blazing fires of desire be sublimated and directed to the heart. The heart energy then circulates and a much greater union becomes possible. And so this greater union is possible through producing focus on the higher parts of yourself and then making a commitment to the other person. So we keep the energies in circulation toward the unit. The male and female together produce what we call the human atom. Now, if the atom is split, then it's no longer an atom. But if the atom have the negative and positive energies in cooperation together, trusting each other, then you can have a whole atom creating the foundation of greater creation. And there we'll leave off there and continue on this idea next week. Any comments or questions before we sign off?
Yeah, the conversation got this chain of thought going. Soul contact would be like knowing your soul. So does that mean like soul contact is good sex?
Well, it's a higher, it's a feeling similar to sex, but a more refined vibration. Now, think of maybe the greatest sex you've ever had, and then take that vibration that you had and fine tune it to a higher level, and those are the feelings of ultimate soul contact. So in a way, we're having what soul contact is a higher correspondence of the sexual union, because the ideal is for you to be married to your soul. And what's interesting in the scriptures is God keeps talking about himself as being the husband, and the church or Israel or the believers out there as being his wife. And he keeps the scriptures keep talking about the union and the covenant and the committed relationship they have. And if we betray our committed relationship to God, then all of a sudden we're pretty much toast. So so it's interesting how the scriptures kind of give that symbology, which is a true principle, but it's a principle that's often misunderstood and misused by the various religious people. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Oh yeah, can I just say real quick? I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but I thought I should share. I had an intuition sort of earlier in the week about the group, and that it seemed to me that one of the bigger obstacles to the manifestation of the molecule was belief. And
Yeah.
people might, whether consciously or not, there might be barriers to fully believing in it. So I guess I would just offer that and see if,
Yeah, it's like people keep saying, using the statement, it's too good to be true. And if you think something is too good to be true, then it will be too good to be true. So the disciples need to take the impossible and say, well, it's not too good to be true, and exercise the power of belief. Belief is important. And some of the things that are possible are hard to believe until they're demonstrated. Now, when something is demonstrated, now who would have believed maybe a few years ago we could have something like a Zoom meeting like we're having right now? But now that we can have a Zoom meeting, everybody believes, hey, it is possible because we're actually doing it. So belief is really easy now. But belief in what we're doing right now, 50 years ago, it just seemed like a fantasy, But the disciple kind of looks into the future and sees what can really happen, and exercising that power of belief speeds the happening forward. And this is an important idea.
Then it
Okay.
will be good, and then it will be true.
Yeah,
So it will be good and true.
exactly.
Yeah, and there's a lot to saying what man can achieve or conceive, he can achieve. And you have to put forethought, whatever you think of, that you are, or that thou art, what they say in the Indian philosophy.
The
Sound
mind
like,
of
So
man
you,
can conceive
you
and
program
believe
your,
and achieve.
yeah, you program your.
yeah, it sounds like you've been reading Napoleon Hill. He really said some great things on belief. Whatever man can believe
And
and
conceive.
conceive, he can achieve. Yeah, that's
It's
one of
like
my
the
favorite.
saying, seeing is believing. I say, if you believe it, you'll see it.
That's a good quote. Did you come up with that by yourself, Ed?
I just made it up.
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah. Well, we'll have to. You ought to, maybe 100 years from now, they'll say somebody will quote that and give you credit. Who knows?
you see, Ed
More than see
had
it,
something to say there, and then he manifested.
Matter of fact, one of my quotes I have is around seeing and believing. That's going to be posted in the next couple of days. So that's interesting. It's coming up. Okay. Any other comments or questions before we sign off?
I've got something, JJ.
Yeah.
I just figured out how to unmute my phone, so I was going to comment on the meditation, but anyway, I want to I got to share, so I want to put my name on the list to share something in a future meeting.
Oh, okay. You got some
One of those
impressive-
5
you
or
got
10
some
minute things
impre-
you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Let's do that next week then, and we'll go from there. Any other short comments or questions before we sign off? Okay, my friends, it was really good to see you this week, and we'll meet next Sunday. I might do a little bit different time to reach out to some of the people in Australia that have a hard time synchronizing with us. So I'll be posting the time probably Thursday evening. And until then, until next Sunday, we will wish you a good week.
Have a great week.
And say sex.
Everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. Hi.
Bye-bye.